Ever consider the power of a curse? The subtle suggestion that an inanimate object or harmful utterance, even the rotted remains of a former king, could attack another with a destructive vengeance. Hello, I am author and paranormal investigator Donald Allen Kirch, and this is Stranger Than Fiction.
Forget the world you know. Enter a bizarre dimension where the strange and unusual guide your imagination towards the unimaginable. Life is stranger than fiction in these true stories, where the ordinary is replaced with the extraordinary. Explore strange legends, weird myths, and odd folklore. The facts are laid before you to examine. You're invited to draw your own conclusions on these true stories of the paranormal.
On November 10, 1958, the Smithsonian Institution received, in the mail, a simple, plain parcel. Several members of the staff had waited with bated breath for its arrival. The package had been sent from a New York jeweler by the name of Harry Winston, who had meant to offer it up as a fantastic centerpiece in a newly formed gem collection, soon to be displayed. The jewel in question was a rare blue diamond mounted within a ring of smaller white diamonds and was an estimated 44 carats. It was the Hope Diamond. It was also a famously unlucky and cursed object. The curse was said to have started with a simple theft. In 1642, a French jeweler named Jean-Baptiste Travanaire, who had been known by his peers as an obtainer of rare and unique jewels, traveled to India and had purchased a 112 and 3/16 carat blue diamond. The diamond was officially stated as coming from a mine in India. That's the official story. Legend has the diamond's origins placed upon a different path.
Master, we must leave this temple, please. The gods, they are watching.
That is what is wrong with you savages. You have not the will to face your own destiny. Can you not see the sheer beauty of the thing?
According to legend, Travanaire had spotted the diamond upon the forehead or eye of an ancient Hindu idol, a female deity of agricultural fertility. It was soon believed that upon stealing the gem, a curse had been placed upon it by the gods, bringing terrible luck and death not only to those who owned it, but also to those who simply touched the thing. Indeed, the first death associated with the jewel was Travanaire himself. Several years after selling the blue diamond, he had been ripped apart by a pack of wild dogs while traveling to Russia. In point of fact, Travanaire's official death is not recorded. It is known that he had been made a noble and had died at the age of 84 in Russia. His was, however, the first associated death brought about by what the world would later call the Hope Diamond. Before his promotion to noble and before his horrific death, the Frenchman Travanaire would do more work to propel both his famous gem and France into disastrous ruin. In 1668, 26 years after his famous theft, King Louis XIV, the Sun King, requested the company of Travanaire, having heard of the wonderfully colored blue diamond he had obtained from India. It was said that when the king had seen the diamond, it was love at first sight. Within a weekend, the blue diamond was purchased by the king, along with 44 large diamonds and 1,112 smaller jewels. In generations to come, both the Crown and France would come to regret the purchase. Although the huge blue diamond had originally been cut to promote its size and not its brilliance, King Louis XIV had the jewel recut to suggest brilliance. The king renamed the gem the Blue Diamond of the Crown and considered the piece his favorite and most prideful object yet to promote both the elegance and superior qualities of French nobility. The diamond had been reduced from 112 and 3/16 carats to 67 and 1/8 carats. Still, the cut was an added improvement. Later, in 1749, Louis's great-grandson, Louis XV, had the famous diamond incorporated with a large red ruby into a decoration called the Order of the Golden Fleece. Both jewels were almost too much for the succeeding kings, having been noticed by their observers as being both ornate and too bulky. It was the next generation of French royals in which the blue diamond's curse went into full speed. For legend has it that both King Louis XVI and his queen, Marie Antoinette, were beheaded during the French Revolution because of the fatal gem. Before his bitter end, the king and queen tried their best to flee both Paris and her angry mobs. In the early days of September 1791, the royal couple had been captured, taken back into the madness that would later turn into France's reign of terror and added their blood and heads to the macabre piece of French history. As a matter of last record, French officials had placed the blue diamond into the people's custody, but it was not well guarded. The building it was placed in had been repeatedly robbed between September 12 to September 16, 1791. Most of the thefts were retrieved, but the blue diamond was never recovered. In 1813, London, England, the jewel of death resurfaced. With its reappearance, there came a buyer who would later give the object its celebrated name. King George IV had died owing many debts. The now 44-carat jewel was sold to help pay off some of those debts. At this time, in 1839, Henry Philip Hope purchased the diamond.
Congratulations on such a terrific find, old man. This gem is a marvel of the modern world. Still, there is something haunting about the whole thing.
Nonsense, dear fellow. I find the bleak warnings on the whole affair to be nothing more than childish poppycock. I shall keep this stone.
The Hope family were banking pioneers. Henry Philip Hope was one of the heirs of the banking firm Hope & Company, which had long since been sold in 1813. Henry had been known worldwide as a collector of rare and magnificent jewels. Strangely enough, while in possession of the Hope diamond, nothing recordable had ever happened to the man the famous jewel had been named after. So perhaps there is some truth to the theory that curses, like sicknesses, can skip a generation before they strike. When Henry Philip Hope died, the diamond went to his oldest nephew, Henry Thomas Hope. When Henry Thomas Hope died in 1862, he left the gem to his widow. When she died, she passed the diamond to her grandson, Lord Francis Hope, in 1887. Although untouched by the curse associated with the jewel, the Hope family did not fare too well under the last generation. Lord Francis Hope, although considered a quite honorable and careworn individual, had a gambling problem. Upon several unpaid debts, he requested the courts to gain access to his famous great-grandfather's estate. In the current will, Lord Francis Hope had only limited access to the lifetime interests of the Hope estate. Selling the famous diamond would have given him the funds needed to clean his slate, so to speak. He was repeatedly denied the chance to redeem himself. Finally, close to bankruptcy and family dishonor in 1901, the diamond was sold. At this point in the diamond's history, one must point out that 3 generations of Hopes owned the jewel and nothing happened to them. Having saved Lord Francis Hope from ruin by its purchase, jeweler Simon Frankel brought the diamond to the United States. Frankel then sold the gem to Paris Cartier. Then came the rich but strangely unfortunate Evelyn Walsh McLean. Evelyn had always told her friends that objects that were considered unlucky usually brought her good luck. So, upon hearing that Cartier had obtained the blue diamond, McLean purchased it in 1910.
Evelyn, darling, are you not worried about the terrible stories and fates surrounding this blue jewel? I certainly would be. Ah! My dear friend, this shall be nothing more than my lucky charm upon the world. Bad luck usually brings me good. I simply will not fear it.
From the moment the woman placed the albatross around her neck, Evelyn Walsh McLean's life became a living hell. Her firstborn son, Vincent, was killed in an unfortunate automobile accident. He was only 9 years old. At the age of 25, her daughter committed suicide. A few years later, her husband was declared insane and spent the rest of his life in a mental institution until his death in 1941. The woman often commented that her diamond had a will of its own and that it was hard to take the jewel off when once she rested it upon her neck. According to one story, she even wore the cursed thing while in the middle of an important surgery, thinking that if she angered it, the operation would go wrong. Evelyn, like so many owners before, died heavily in debt. Her jewels, including the Hope diamond, were put up for auction in 1949, 2 years after her death. At that time, Harry Winston purchased the gem, giving it later to the government of the United States, namely the Smithsonian Institute. The jewel has been on display in the National Museum of Natural History ever since. Still, one must take into account all the horrible things that have happened while others had owned this devilishly blue diamond. I mention only these few cardinal events. Jacques Collet purchased the Hope diamond from Simon Frankel and committed suicide. A Russian prince bought it from Collet and was killed by revolutionists in 1918. The Russian royal family loaned the diamond to a favored duke who was murdered by his sweetheart. The merchant who originally sold the diamond to the Turkish Sultan was thrown from a parapet along with his wife and young child. Sultan Hamid gave it to Abu Sabir to polish. Later, Sabir was imprisoned and tortured. The diamond's assigned guardian, Galeb Bey, was hanged by a mob in Turkey. A Turkish attendant was hanged while trying to steal the diamond. King Louis gave it to a lover whom he later abandoned. A temporary wearer, very temporary, was a young princess of France who was torn apart by a raging mob. Jeweler William False, who recut the stone, died a ruined man. William False's son, Hendrik, stole the jewel from his father and later committed suicide. Some years later, before entering into its modern era, the jewel had been owned by Francis Delalue, who died in misery and want. There is no more horrible way to go. In the realms of the Hope family, there had been one old silver screen actress named May Yogi, who had been the ex-wife of the last Hope, taking the claim to court that she owned the item. Desperate for money and knowing the curse of the jewel, she tried to capitalize upon the horror by filming a 15-chapter serial entitled The Hope Diamond Mystery. She starred as Lady Frances Hope in the series. The film was a total disaster and took the last remnants of the Hope Empire with it. So in the end, the family the jewel had been named after and famous to emulate exists no more. The last official owner, Evelyn Walsh McLean, added her own mythos to the diamond by stating that it had once been owned by Catherine the Great, who had the object removed from the Kremlin and the city of Moscow, having believed that the devil was encased within. This last cannot be substantiated and was quite possibly a story meant to increase the value of the gem. Cursed objects are possibly the oldest living fear of the human race, next to those of haunted houses or ghosts. There are not a people, nation, language, or religion that does not have its fair share of stories when it comes to unlucky or cursed items. When most people have to associate the word curse with an object, place, artifact, or ancient relic, they immediately think of blockbuster movies starring such characters as Indiana Jones. In reality, the facts are indeed more entertaining. These are real people, real bodies, and real epitaphs on gravestones that are witness to the truism of evil. Not to outdo the Hope Diamond, there are a few other objects that give the bedeviled gem a run for her money. I will only name a brief few. England, having its fair harvest of curses, shares with us tonight the curse of the crying boy portrait. In 1985, in Rotterdam, the Hall family became the victim of every family's worst nightmare. Their home burnt to the ground. All were saved, but the residence was a total loss. The only thing left intact, a small oil painting of a crying boy. Confused firemen took out to the halls a practically unaffected oil painting which was discovered hanging from a wall where around the painting nothing had been burnt. This family portrait had a past, namely a lot of fires. As the story goes, many of the halls had given the painting to family living far away from each other, hoping that distance would equal safety. It did not. Each house the crying boy was placed into burned to the ground. If left in a closet or storage room, others would tend to hear the constant sounds of the young boy crying. It is claimed that a companion piece, that of a crying girl, had been lost during the Second World War. Legend has it that the crying boy will not rest until he is reunited with his sister. Was there ever really a companion piece, a crying girl painting? This has always been a curiosity to me. In 1974, one of the greatest archaeological treasures of all times was accidentally discovered in Yang Village, China, while digging up a well. The Terracotta Army. This 2,200-year-old find brought wealth and fame to all connected with it, except the original 7 farmers who wanted nothing more than a freshwater source to help feed their livestock. The clay army had been placed in single-file rows in honor of China's first ancient emperor. Always at attention, each clay soldier had been blessed by high priests to destroy those who would disturb their master's sleep. The emperor's tomb itself has yet to be unearthed. Still, the curse seemed to work on those who had first discovered them. The entire village lost all its lands and livelihoods. All became the property of the People's Republic. 3 of the farmers died. Cause of death, unknown. The main discoverer died by his own hand, having nothing to pass on to his family. While awards, honors, and legacies were being built by politically picked professors and party members, the 4 surviving farmers who discovered the clay army meekly earned $2 a day in a shack the government allows them to occupy on the site as a gift shop. In the 1950s, no star in Hollywood shined brighter and held more promise than that of James Dean. His talent was like nothing seen upon the American cinema screen, and all saw great films and promises ahead for him. James Dean himself, awkward, shy at times, and insecure, escaped his career by driving his favorite car, a 1955 Porsche Spyder he affectionately called the Little Bastard. Upon purchasing the fast car, James Dean's friend tried desperately to make the young man change his mind. There were bad feelings for the automobile. How correct they were. James Dean died in the Little Bastard on September 30th, 1955. After his funeral, the wreck was purchased for little under $3,000. When it was finally picked up by the collector, the wreck of the Little Bastard fell off a truck while being unloaded, breaking a mechanic's legs. The car was nothing but trouble. While raising money to restore the little bastard, the owner sold a few parts to some race car drivers. The parts, fully inspected and labeled safe, were used for their assigned purposes. Both drivers were killed in separate accidents on separate racetracks at the same time. A thief lost an arm in an injury while trying to steal the thing. And one unfortunate mover was crushed to death when the little bastard was finally restored and taken on tour. In 1960, the car disappeared while in transport. No one knows what happened to it. One of the most famous curses is the curse of the pharaohs. This ancient curse is based on the belief that if a person disturbs the mummy of any ancient Egyptian, especially that of a pharaoh, will be cursed. This curse doesn't discriminate, and it doesn't matter if the culprit is a thief or an archaeologist. Bad luck, illness, or death is the cost of disturbing the peace of the resting pharaoh. There has been debate over whether or not this curse is real. One of the reasons many doubt the authenticity of the curse is that there can be a scientific basis for the illnesses and deaths. Bacteria that have grown in the underground tombs of the sleeping kings can cause irreparable damage to the human respiratory system. This can be the underlying cause of any death or sickness. There have been many reported versions related to the opening of King Tutankhamun's tomb. One such version is that of Howard Carter finding an unusual clay tablet in the antechamber of the lost king's tomb. A few days after cataloging it, the story suggests that Alan Gardner deciphered the hieroglyphics. The tablet read, "Death will slay with his wings whoever disturbs the peace of the pharaoh." Both Carter and Gardner viewed the curse as a warning to tomb robbers, but the tablet is alleged to have spooked away the local workers, and all accounts of the mysterious tablet were removed from the documented records. The tablet itself disappeared, of course, never having been photographed or sketched. So, there is no solid evidence that the tablet even existed, only speculation. The second version of the curse proclaims that on entering the second golden shrine, above the door read, "They who enter this sacred tomb shall swift be visited by wings of death." Of the 26 people present at the opening of the tomb, 6 had died. Of the 22 people present at the opening of the sarcophagus, 2 had died. Carter died in 1939 at the age of 64. Harry Burton died in 1940 at the age of 60, and Sir Alan Gardner died in 1963 at the age of 84. The tomb was first opened in November of 1922. No one knows for sure if the curse is real, but many people remain skeptical. What evil can possibly be out there willing to take common, ordinary objects, things that we, as humans, tend to love and associate with memories of family, hope, and accomplishment, and sour them to the point of unmeasured misery? Is it life's way of reminding us that there are still mysteries out there that we are too small to solve? This can certainly be said for the items mentioned, as well as for the swirling blue universe of the Hope Diamond. Is the Hope Diamond cursed? There are those who still say yes. One has to look no further than our nation's history since 1958, when the diamond was taken into custody. The chaos of the 1960s, the Cold War, Vietnam, and Watergate. The decline in belief in our national self. Will the next victim at death's door be the United States of America? Well, keeping one eye on the diamond and the other on today's headlines, who can blame those who still believe in curses? If you would like to see my work, go to my website at DonaldAllenKirch.com. That's Donald Allen, A-L-L-E-N, Kirch, K-I-R-C-H.com. One word, DonaldAllenKirch.com. My books are available in both ebook and print format and can be found on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. It would be an honor to entertain you. So, for Stranger Than Fiction, this is Donald Allen Kirch wishing you unpleasant dreams. Good night.